Hi there, what are you doing with this little brown box? After this video, you're never going to look at them the same way again. Whether you're a card maker wanting to stretch this kit or a scrapbooker, I think you're really going to love this mini album today. We're going to create a mini album using the Heirloom Kit, which is this one right here. It is super pretty and I think you're going to love it. So let's get started. Before we start putting this album together, I thought I would share with you how I stay organized and how I get ready to create a mini album. I know that a lot of people love creating these, but sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. So let me break it down for you, and hopefully this will encourage you to maybe open up your box and do something other than cards. Now, I love this one in particular because there's so many options to decorate your cards, which means that there's tons of options to decorate your album. When you dive right into it, I was really hoping that I could use this piece of chipboard to create my album, but sadly, it is not big enough. I'll show you what I'm using here. And I am going to dive into this box and really play with all of these fun embellishments. There's vellum in here. There's gorgeous flowers. I think this is going to make a super pretty album. So let's move this to the side and let me show you what else you'll need to create the album. We'll talk about this folder in just a minute. We're going to use these beautiful card bases here to create the signatures inside the mini album. And I'm also going to dig in here and use this pattern to decorate the front and back covers. Additionally, I'm going to pull out 2 sheets of basic white cardstock. And I felt that when I looked at these bases here, let me bring them back in. When I looked at these bases here, I felt that the Country Woods really matched this collection quite a bit. So I'm going to use this one single sheet, and this is going to use for our cover. So it's the one that has a really dark base at the back, and the front, the scale of it is perfect for the size of the album we're going to create together. We're going to use some coordinating cardstock to complete the album. So this is Crumb Cake, Pretty Peacock, and Pretty in Pink. And if you're like me, I know you have chipboard in your crafty space. So you're going to need 1 sheet of chipboard that's going to be for the album cover. Let's talk about this file folder for one moment. This is how I stay organized. Now, sometimes we can't get it all done in one go. And when you have your little piles all over your desk, you're bound to lose a piece. So I decided I was going to use this file folder. I went ahead and I labeled all of the sections. If you're looking for something like this, you can find them either at the dollar store or on Amazon. Try and get something that's not too big and too bulky, but that has a lot of dividers. This one here has about 13 dividers inside, and the mini album we're going to create together has 14 pages. So 14 fronts if you want. And that's how I'm going to divide all of my pieces in this file folder. If you're looking for instructions on how to create this album, I've gone ahead and I've created a full workshop guide to help you successfully put this album together. Let me get busy. I'm going to cut all of my pieces and then we're going to start building our hard-covered album, and we're going to build our signatures using card bases. I think you're really going to like this one. I've gone ahead, I've cut all of my pieces, and as I told you, all of my little dividers have been labeled and all of my pieces are in here. Now, once you see this completed album, you might want to dive in and also add the ephemera for each of the page. So the way that I've divided my work, if you want, each tab, when I go in here, I'm going to pull out the pieces I need to create, in this case here, the signature page, and whatever other pieces I need to create page 1. And we're going to move through this little file folder until we are done. I did tuck in the back all of the pieces that I need to create the cover. So let's pull these out. I have my front cover. I'm going to move this out of the way for one moment. I have my chipboard pieces, so this is the front and the back. there's a spine in here. This is the spine. And I also have the piece that I've cut for the binding system. So this is it for what's at the back of this folder. So now I can move this to the side and we can start building our hinge system and our hardcover album. For the hinge system, you're just going to go in here and you're going to score on the score lines that you need to create that kind of like an accordion fold. If you've seen the hinge system before, I'm following along the way that they are normally made. So if you've never done one of these albums before, this is a really easy way to start because you basically only have 3 hinges and it's small. It's easy to kind of learn as you go. So we're going to move this out of the way and we're going to construct our hinge. To construct your hinge, you're going to need double-sided tape. Now, we do have double-sided tape that comes with this card kit, and there is a good amount in here, but the only downfall that I found was that it was a little bit narrow. So I'm going to go back to my trusted Shuquan tape, and you can find this on Amazon. This one here actually fits right inside the groove. So right now I am working from the back side, and you know you're working from the back side when the bumps, if you want, are facing you. Every time you do a fold for this album, you're always going to bury the bump. So hopefully you'll remember that because it is an important part. So now I've got the raised side on this side and here are the bumps. And I am going to add some here. So you'll have 2 areas that are nice and wide, and those are to be secured inside of the album. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull that down. You can see why I like this width of tape because it really covers pretty much everything that you need. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to add your tape all on the back side. And I do this before I do any of the folding. I just find that it's much easier. You're going to flip that over. You're going to add some tape on the larger flap. And you're going to add it in the first section. And then we're going to skip a few and then we're going to go in the middle section. Now I have my flaps and I have my 3 areas that I want to create the hinge. I'm going to flip this over and now your score lines should be going in. I know that this is hard to see because we're working white on white, but you have 2 sections here that are 1/2 inch, and then you have a 1/4 inch, 2 sections of 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch, and so on. The 1/2 inch sections are the hinge that are going to hold your signatures. So you're going to add tape on those, and you have to be mindful not to go on the score line, and I'm going up. I'm actually putting the tape closest to the top edge. I did switch to the tearaway tape because this one here actually fits inside the gussets really well. So there is some merit in having a 1/4 inch tape. So we've got all of the back done. Now I'm going to flip this to the front. So this is the front side and I'm literally pinching those hinges together. Now I know other people will fold this kind of like accordion style, but I find when you have your tape on both sides, it's a lot easier to find those hinges, especially if you're new at this. So you can see here that I'm folding back and front, and as I'm doing that, it's actually forming the gusset in between each of those hinges. So I'm going to fold these so that you can see. Do you see that? Those are the 3 hinges. So let's start to adhere these down. These 2 big flaps here, keep the tape on that. We're not going to remove it right away. That's going to be stuck down inside the book. We're going to remove the double-sided tape on one side of the hinge. I'm going to press that in. I'm going to burnish that in really nicely. A bone folder is your friend when you're making a mini album. So do you see that? That is hinge number 1. Now, if you're wondering what this funny thing is, it is a bone folder, and I picked this up a while ago. I forget where I've actually picked this up. You can use just your regular bone folder to do this. I prefer this one. It fits really nice in my hand, and it's actually for left-handed crafters. There's not a lot of tools out there for left-handed people, so I grabbed onto this one. Let's move on to the next hinge. So I'm revealing that back piece of tape, and I'm pushing both of those together. Do you see that? I've just pushed those together, and I'm going to burnish that in. And I'm always folding on each of the folds. Once you're done, you'll see that you have tape on both sides ready to go. So this is the last hinge. We're going to fold back. We're going to burnish that in. And there you have it, 3 hinges ready to be placed inside the hardcover. So I'm going to kind of train them to go left and right and burnish them in. I can't say that enough. So when you flip your piece over, do you see that? You have tape on every single section. That is the beauty of taking the time to add your tape before you fold everything and before you even put it inside of your hardcover. I know that people do it differently, and hopefully this is a different way for you to see how a hinge is created, and it might make more sense for you to do it this way. Now here I am kind of cutting each end. It's just like a little bit of a miter cut if you want. I'm staying away from the score line, and this is going to help us when we put our signatures on. So it's just another little tip. And again, I've seen people struggle trying to do this while this hinge is already inside the book. I just find let's get all the hard work done first, and then when we go to put on our signatures, it'll be easier. Now, if you're someone that needs instructions, I've gone through a lot of details to put some of these instructions together. There's even like some color coding to help you along. Even if you're watching the videos, sometimes you need the written word to kind of help you make sense of how to create a mini album with a hinge system. So let's work on the hardcover. We're going to have this piece of pattern paper. This is 12 inches. In this book, everything is measured to fit a 12-inch piece of paper because that's what we have. And we're also using card bases for our signature pieces inside. So everything has been measured for you. And this is an extra step maybe, but I find it's an important step. Because I've chosen a pattern paper that has a direction, there's lines in there. I want to make sure that when I cover my chipboard, it's going to go on straight. Using our scoreboard, we're going to add some guidelines. So when we put our chipboard inside, they're going to be straight with that pattern that I have on the other side. So here I'm scoring at 1 inch, and each end here are going to be scored at 3/4 of an inch. Again, these dimensions are specific for the size of this book and for the front and back cover. So you'll see that in just a moment. All right, we're done scoring this piece and we're going to start folding on it. And I think at the beginning I said that you always bury the bump. Well, in this case here, I guess I should have scored on the light side, and I scored on the dark side. So we definitely want the light side on the outside of the book. So I'm going to fold onto the score line. And again, I'm using my bone folder because I want to make sure everything is straight. If you don't have a pattern paper, you could probably just drop your pieces on there. But you know what? You have to measure. Make sure everything is nice and straight. This is foolproof. You're going to rest that piece right in the corner. Do you see that? It hits the bottom and it hits the edge. And I know that that piece is exactly where it should be. And then I do the other one, same thing. Do you see how that piece rests right in the right spot. And in the spine here, there's just enough space for that too. So let's take this tearaway tape out for a spin. I want to see how much of it you get and how far you can get when you're building a mini album if you're using the content of the card kit box. So you're going to run this all along the outer edges of this piece. You're going to do this on all four sides, and you can see here that I'm not going all the way to the corners because we are going to miter cut those corners, so you don't need to waste your tape going all the way to the edge. So those are our flaps for the book, and I'm going to burnish that in. You're going to see me do that quite a bit. So now we're going to add tape on our chipboard covers. So this is one of the front or backs. And I'm going to run that all the way around on all four sides, and we'll see how far we get with this tape. You're going to repeat that same process with the other piece. So these are the fronts and back, and I'm going to run it all the way around and see how far I get with my tape, and that's it. I have enough tape to go around the outer edges of my pattern paper, and I was almost able to do the front and the back covers. So this is how far you get if you are using the content that is in that card kit. Now you can definitely get more of this tearaway tape. I will list that down in the description box below. But if you were to make the cards as is and not alter this project, you would have more than enough tape. I'm going to switch here to my Shuquan tape, and you can get this on Amazon or probably at a craft store. I find that the Stampin' Up! One is just as good. The only, I guess, downfall is that it only comes in 1/4 inch, as opposed to this one here, you can get it in different sizes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this to the spine piece, and I want to make sure that I have it all the way to the edges, so that's why I'm using my bone folder to have a nice clean cut, and I'm just going to run that all the way across. So now that we have our tape, again, burnish, and the reason for that is because you want the backing to come off easier, and you want everything to stick. Now you saw me here, I brought my Tombow glue, and I'll explain that in a moment. We're going to reveal our tape here. We're going to pull back on the backing, and if you've ever worked with tearaway tape, it is super strong, and once it's down, it's down. There's no way it's coming up. So if I was to go down in the corner here, I have one go at it. So if this is your first time making a mini album, use a little bit of liquid glue. You see here I'm just adding a few dots right on top of my double adhesive, and you're probably thinking, well, that's a lot of glue. You know what? I've done this many times, and none of my books have come apart. So now when I go right in the corner, so I'm going flush with the edge and the bottom, and I'm pushing that in really gently, I have time, because that Tombow glue is allowing me to make sure that this piece is completely straight. Do you see that? I gave myself some wiggle room, and I think that is an awesome tip, especially if you're brand new at making mini albums. So we're going to do that one more time. I'm going to add some liquid glue right on top of my double-sided tape. It kind of feels redundant, but I like the double-sided tape because it holds so nice, but it's not forgiving. So do you see here? I'm pushing that onto the side and the bottom. Did you see? It moved a little bit. Now, if this was straight up double-sided tape, it would not move. So here we have our two pieces, and I know they're straight. I didn't have to measure anything. I literally followed the score line that I created, and I find that this is a real time saver, and it works really nicely, especially when you have a pattern. I have a pattern at the back. I have stripes. I want to make sure that those are nice and straight with the chipboard pieces, so that is also another good thing. I'm going to add my spine, and again, do you see how I'm pushing my score line or my flap with the score line right at the bottom? And now I'm running my bone folder. Now, if you don't have a bone folder like mine, I know that this one is the perfect width for the space that I need to create this album. You can run this one. I'm just giving it a try here, and it does fit. Or you can use your other piece. So this is the other piece of the chipboard, and you can use that as a shim or a spacer if you want. The reason why you need that space is because when we fold on those lines, we don't want to crack or rip our paper. So that chipboard piece will give you the proper spacing that you need when you are constructing your hard-covered album. So now I'm burnishing everything in, and I can't stress enough how important this is. When you're burnishing stuff in, you're really making it go into the chipboard and everything stays put. Now you're probably wondering why we didn't score the top, because we did score 3 sides. I find that when I score the top, because I'm dealing with the width or the thickness of the chipboard, sometimes my score line is not at the right location. So I just do it here, like I do it at this stage. I run my bone folder, and this is another good indication for me when I'm running it on the top that all of my pieces have lined up. So I'm gonna have to train the paper here a little bit more, but I don't score the top on purpose. You probably, I don't know if you caught that, but it is done this way so that when you are folding those flaps over, they will fold properly. So here I'm adding tape, and again I'm running it at the top and bottom, and I can see that my top is nice and straight because my tape went on really nicely. I'm going to go at the ends, and then we're going to start folding those flaps. Actually, before we fold, we're going to burnish, and then we're going to miter cut those corners. Now, if you've ever done a mini album, a miter cut for a cover is different. You don't want to go right at the edge. You want to leave yourself like a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch. I tend to go an 1/8 of an inch only because I've tried a 1/16 of an inch and sometimes I cut that too close and then I have a gap when I fold over. So I don't mind a little bit of an overhang, and you'll see that when I start folding those. So we're going to cut them because definitely you don't want bulk. You want this to be like a present, right? When you wrap it, it's all nice and neat. So I'm going to cut those down, and you can see that I'm trying to show you here. There's a little bit of a space where that chipboard ends right at the tip. So that is important to leave yourself a little bit of paper there. So we're going to fold the top and the bottom, and then this is the side. So do you see here? There's a tiny little piece. Like I'm just going to pinch that with my nail. You can do it with the bone folder as well, but that makes for a nice clean fold when you fold the side flaps. So I'm just pushing those in, and when I bring that up, you'll see that it's nice and there's no bulk. It just fits really, really nicely. So I'm going to start with the top, and I'm going to pull towards me. I'm going from the outside edges into the center, and I'm literally pulling with my fingers just to make sure that that's a nice snug fit. If there's any gaps, it's better to have them towards the center where your hinge is or where your spine is than at the end. You don't want the ends to buckle out, but if you do it this way, and again, there's no rush in this. There's no point in rushing this step because this is what forms the entire book. So you're going to fold that one in. This one here, I have to kind of train it to go down because I didn't have a hard score line. And you can see that I'm really pulling here as much as I can on paper, of course. And then I'm going to burnish that in. I'm going to fold that in, and I'm going to run my bone folder and just make sure that everything is nice and tight around my chipboard pieces. So we're going to do the last side here, and I'm going to show you that again. So I'm pushing that in, that tiny little piece of paper. You could add a little bit of glue if you want. Do you see how I'm pulling with my fingers, and I'm pulling towards the center? And I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to run my bone folder all around to make sure everything is laying flat. So one more time here, we're going to fold that in. There should be a little bit of glue there from the double-sided tape that we put down. So it usually stays put. This is where you are going to kind of start training that spine and that paper to behave. And what do I mean by that? It's like if you were to try and fold that over in one go, you could possibly rip your pattern paper. And again, not all pattern papers are equally weighted to be a cover. This is the benefit of those score lines. Do you see how nice and straight our pattern is on our cover? And I think that that's super important. Now that our cover is done, let's attach our hinge system on that spine. Now I've seen people, they just drop it in and it's straight the first go. I need to measure. So I'm gonna find the center. And if this is your first book, I would recommend you measure this out. You can actually line up that center hinge if you want, right in the center of the spine, and then just add a pencil line on whatever side you want. You just really need it on one of the sides. You're going to reach for a T-ruler. You're going to extend that line, and this is where you're going to line up your hinge. At this point in the assembly, this is how your hardcover is going to look. The hinge has been secured down, and I literally butt that right against the line that I did. You could use your straight edge if you want to really position that in. You also have to be mindful to center it top and bottom. Once you're done that, you're going to go back and you're going to burnish, burnish, burnish. Again, can't tell you how important that step is. And you're also going to run your bone folder in that crease. Do you remember when we left some space between the spine and the covers? So this is where that's going to start to play in. And then I'm pushing in my chipboard, if you want. I'm pushing that into my surface so that it can fold properly. You'll need to do this with care. Like, don't try and just fold it right away. We are dealing with paper, so you can go nice and slow. You can also use your ruler and put it right into the crease and then fold that up. We're just trying to train the paper to fold without cracking. And so far, everything is folding nice. So you can see from the inside, I have my 3 hinges. Hopefully you can see that. I have my 3 hinges here, and I have the space for the back and the front cover. Let's dress up the inside of these 2 covers, and for that I'm going to use an envelope. I did go ahead and I cut one down, but I want to show you the pieces that we have. We have really good usable pieces. This one here, not so much, but this one here is a nice big size, and it's going to go right here. Do you see how pretty that is? I'm going to make sure it's nice and straight when I'm looking at it from this side. Here, because it's inside of the book, and once our signatures are in there, it's not going to matter as much. I just want to show you how to achieve this. And depending on how big you trim your envelope, you'll get different size every time. So I'm just going to put that right in, and I'm literally just hanging that full line over. And I'm trimming that off. Do you see how tiny this piece is? That's not even a 1/16 of an inch. I don't think so. The idea is just to separate the envelope. So we're going to do that on the other side. And again, I'm trying to be very, very frugal. When I'm trimming this off, it's a sliver. It's just a sliver. I'm just detaching it. So we're going to do that one more time. And now I have a very usable piece. So the other thing that's important, because you're not really measuring, you want to make sure that they're the same. And I guess I was pretty good at that one. They are exactly the same. For the width of this piece, I actually went on the outside of the score line. So if you go from the white side, you can see that score line. And depending on your paper trimmer, I just line that up right on the edge. And I cut this piece. And again, we're going to keep this piece. And now we have two very good usable pieces. I'm going to ink distress. All of the ink distressing is done with crumb cake, and I'm going to stick to that for the entire book. Now that I have my pieces, they've all been ink distressed, we're going to add these inside. And what's important is that it's nice and straight on all three sides. I'm just going to pop that in. And again, I'm kind of wiggling that in place. The idea is that it's going to be nice and straight and it's going to hide all of that construction. Okay, now for the signatures, and we're going to dive in back into our file folder, and we're going to start with the easy one first, the one that goes in the center. And for that, you're going to need 2 card bases. You're going to notice that both of my card bases are folded pattern side in, and that's done on purpose. What we're doing is we're actually using 2 card bases. The fold edges is going to go inside, and we're not going to put glue here. We're going to add this card base to this card base, and we're going to glue or add glue on the top and bottoms only. Let's talk about glue for one moment. Now, you could definitely go back to a double-sided tape, but the only one I have is quite wide, and it's going to be too wide for what I want to do because, of course, we're going to have some inserts in here. So I'm going to reach for my Barely Art glue. Now, I've added my Barely Art glue to this little tool here. I really, really like it. The reason why I'm using Barely Art glue is because this glue actually dries completely. Not like the Tombow glue. The Tombow glue stays tacky, or it doesn't dry completely. It is good. Like, there's a glue for every occasion, and you saw here that I did use it on this. So this works really, really well. The Barely Art glue will dry completely, and the reason why I need that is because when I adhere these 2 pieces together, and then I know that this is going to be a pocket, when I put my insert in, I don't want it to stick to whatever glue I used on the edges. So if you use double-sided tape, it's the same thing. You have a little edge that still is tacky, and now I have to make sure that I'm going to glue the right pieces. I know that I want my 2 folded edges at the bottom, and this is going to be a side loading pocket. I am going to run a bead of glue right here at the top and at the bottom. It's a very small bead of glue because I want to make sure that I'm giving myself the maximum size for my pocket. And I am going to adhere these together. Now, it's kind of important that these line up. You see here? These all have to line up so you can tap them into place. And if these ones here are not perfectly aligned, you can just give them a nice little trim. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to burnish this. So whatever glue I have, I'm going to let it kind of ooze out and not stay inside this pocket I've just created. This is our first signature, and it's going to go right in the center. Let's do the other 2 because they're exactly the same. So for the next 2, there's going to be one that's going to go at the front and one that goes at the back. I've already gone ahead and I've scored this one. So this is cut out of basic white. I'm going to score it in the middle. I'm recreating, if you want, a card base. And then I'm just going to create a flap, and this is just scored at 1 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to start with the pink base because I know this is how I want to start the album. Now, if you want to start with the blue, you would start with the blue. Very much like this one, I am going to fold on the opposite side. I'm just going to make sure that everything is nice and straight. And you can do that with your bone folder. Like when you're squaring off your base, you go kind of in the center and then you fan out in the center and you fan out. And you will get a nice crisp edge every single time. So this is my card base from the kit. This is the add-on. This one here, I'm going to fold. I'm going to bury the bump and I'm going to do the same thing. I am going to score on that line, and I added an extra fold if you want. This is only 1 inch. There's not too much you can do with card bases, but you'll see that once we put this inside the book, it has a really cool interaction. So this one here is a little bit different. When I did this one, so let me move this out of the way for you. Hopefully this is not too confusing. So basically what I did here is I put the folded edges together and I added glue at the top and at the bottom. So these were kind of going in the same direction, right? So this is how that's going to go. And this now should be dry enough. Let me just run my bone folder in here. So I'm just making sure that everything is nice and dry. And now I have my side pocket. This particular one, if you find that this is the easiest one to do, you could repeat this 3 times. But I wanted to add a little bit of interaction. So this one here, when you put it together, you're going to take whatever pattern you decide is the front, and you're going to take the white card base. Do you see how this is kind of like a W with the little flap? You're going to adhere these together, and you want to have this flap out. This is going to be your front page. We're going to decorate that, of course, but this is your first flap, and this is going to go like this. So you want this to open out. So this is what it looks like. Let me show you that again. And I'm going to add glue at the top and bottom. I'm trying to be as close as I can to the edge and also trying to not put too much glue. So do you see here? I want to show you that again. I'm going to adhere this down. I'm going to make sure that I'm not overlapping anywhere. So this is nice and straight. You can tap it in place if you want. Tap it in place. So this is how this signature is going to go in. So I'm going to let that adhere. We're going to put this here. This one goes in the middle. You can kind of see the book forming. This one here is the last signature. So again, you're folding on that pattern like so. So for this one here, it's the same 2 pieces, but the functionality is reverse. So we're going to flip this piece over, because once it's glued together and it's inside the book, you have a flap, and then this opens out. It's all going to make sense once we attach them to the book, but it is an important step here. So do you see how the blue card, you need a flap on the right side, and then you're going to glue these 2 together. So let's do that. Again, I'm going very sparely with the glue, and I did test this, and the Barely Art glue, you don't need a lot of it. You really don't. It sticks so well. Even though you might think this is not strong enough, it completely is. So I'm going to tap that in place, tap it in place. I want to make sure everything is nice and secure. So I'm gonna add this one here. Now the fun part. You have to make sure you've got the right order, right? Because you want this flap to open out. When you're flipping through your book, you want this to flip out. And we're gonna start with the back one. So I'm gonna put these two here, and I'm gonna try and go slow so that you can see what I'm doing. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm gonna open this up. Do you see how I can put my hand in here now? These are the two backs of my card bases, and I am going to slide that right on top. Now what is important is that it has to be centered, and this is the first one that you're going to put in, right? So it has to be nice and centered. You don't want it to, you can, believe it or not, you can go crooked. You have a little bit of time to make this go straight because we're dealing with glue, and we're going to use that same trick that I did for the cover where I added some glue, but I'm going to use the Barely Art glue. So we're going to remove the backing. I'm going to remove it on this side. And we're going to remove it on this side. And then I'm going to add some glue. And the reason why, again, that I'm adding glue, I want to be able to move this piece. If I don't get it on straight, I'm giving myself a little bit of wiggle room. So you're going to take your signature. You can put your hand in it. You'll find your groove. I find that if I just go in here, so I'm going to go nice and close, and I am going to drop this on. You can see here that it's giving me a chance to make sure that I have this on right. You don't want to make it go too far in, like it should not overlap that hinge. So in here, it should not overlap that. And I'm going to push that straight on. So I am going to burnish that in here. I'm going to fold that over. It is a little bit awkward for the first one, but you'll see adding that glue is really, really good. So do you see here how this is now a page? This is now a pocket right inside. And this page here is now a pull-out. Remove the tape on both sides. So the one that I want you to grab now is the one that has the double pattern. And I alternated the patterns. So you see that the back page is blue, this one is pink, and then it's going to be blue, and then it's going to be pink. Now you decide. You pick your own adventure for this book. It is your book, but that's how I'm going to put them in. And again, I'm adding some glue on top, and I don't think these pages are ever going to come out because we're using both types of glue. So I'm going to open this up, and I want to put the pink towards the end. I am going to, and hopefully you can see that, I'm kind of straddling my hinge, and I'm going to push that in. And what's important at this point is you want to make sure that you are lined up with the previous one. Do you see how I was able to move that into place? Okay, so you will see here that I am lined up. Do you see how the bottom and the top is lined up? And again, you know, you'll see people make these albums and they just pop them on and everything fits, and kudos to them. Like, I'm very impressed that they can do that in one go. But I feel that I need to take my time to make sure that everything is lining up. And here I have my pocket, and here I have my page, and this is nice and straight. So we have one more to go. This is our last signature that's going in here, and you can see that I'm adding like a generous amount and a little bit more on the ends. So this is why we tapered these ends, to make it easier for this step. Now this one here, if I was to put it this way, it would be the wrong way. So I'm going to flip that over. You want to make sure that this is the flap is on the outside, so this is the way that it's going in. All right, so we're going to open that up. I am going to turn that over, and I'm going to straddle my hinge, and I'm going to push that into place. I want to make sure again that I'm lining up my page. Do you see that it wasn't completely lined up? There we have it. I'm away from my score line, which is something that I wanted. I'm going to burnish that in. I have my pocket right here. I have my pull-out. And this is it. If you've made it this far, our book is done. Now we have to decorate it. And I know that there was a lot of steps, and I took my time to try and explain this to you as best as I could. Creating a mini album can be a little scary, but you know what? It's totally worth it. I think that I broke this down enough for you to feel comfortable enough to create your very own using this kit. And what I like about this album in particular is that we are using card bases for our pages inside. I just want to show you how to kind of finish off this flap. And before you finish off this flap, you're going to add your piece of cardstock in here. And when you open this up, so we're going to use that on the inside. And then to add a little bit of contrast, we're going to put a piece right here. So this piece here is cut down. So I've just trimmed off 1/8 of an inch. It's just a smidge if you want all the way around, and it's going to match this piece. And then we have this piece here. Now these are fun. They match, but how about we make them a little bit more fun? You'll notice in the album that I use this file folder here, and this one in particular is retired, but they do have a similar one where instead of the words, it's like kind of a brick finish. I just couldn't help myself. This file folder is perfect for this collection. So what I want to do here, I'm going to use the light side of Crumb Cake, and I'm going to sneak that in here. You want to make sure that it's nice and straight because you do have like distress words. So I'm going to go emboss that, and I'll show you the next step. So I like to line it up. There's an actual line at the bottom, and if you can line that up, you'll be sure to have your words going nice and straight. I'm just going to use this here to protect my surface, and you can just use a nail file. And do you see how this looks really, really great? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sand the entire piece. I think you'll agree that this is so much better than just that plain piece. We don't want to overdo it, but we definitely want to add some character inside our book. And I am going to pretty much use Barely Art glue for all of these pieces, again just because I can wiggle them into place. And although this might not look like a lot of glue, trust me, this glue is magical. You don't need a lot. So I'm going to put that in, and I'm always mindful that I'm lining up the outer edges because that's what you see. So you've got this first piece, and now we're going to fold this one over. Again, the reason why I added my piece of cardstock before is when you do tags, if you would have closed this down and then just put your cardstock right on the edge, when you pull things in and out, they will snag. So we're going to go back to one of the card bases, and I'm going to add it right here on the front. So this is 1 inch, so I'm going to cut that down to 1 inch. And now it's just a case of adding a little bit of glue here. I'm going to try and angle that so you can see I'm not putting a lot. I'm just putting a little bead at each end. and then I'm going to fold that close. So the next thing I want to show you is how to do the inserts for these pockets, because we end up with 3 pockets in these signatures. So one at the back, one in the center, and one at the front. I'm just going to go through the steps in creating the inserts. So these are going to go right in here, and you can see that it's a little bit snug. So if it's a little bit snug, take your bone folder once everything is nice and dry and just run it on the edges. This is just going to allow for that piece to fit in. And what's nice about this piece is that it actually accommodates a 3x4 photo. So I really like that as well. So I thought we would dress this piece up like we did that folded piece, like this one. Before I do the embossing, I want to create an edge, and this is from the Fancy Border Dies, and I'm going to use this one right here. This is going to be a 2-step process because I want to cut it first, and then I'm going to bring back that really cool embossing folder, and I'm going to emboss this piece just to give it a little bit of character. Now, if you do the embossing first and then you run it again to do the die cut, you're going to kind of diminish the look of the embossing. Let's take a look at how this turned out. I think it's just that nice little detail. Now, you could add a pull tab if you want, but I really like this peeking out. So let's do our embossing. And if you're using this particular embossing folder, let's just go back to this one. Do you see how the words are going in a direction? So we're going to keep that same direction. So make sure that you put this piece down this way, not this way, because your words are going to go in the opposite direction. So I'm going to lift that. I'm going to add my piece. I'm going to line it with that bottom line. Again, I have the side that I want embossed up. The label is up, the color that I want is up. I'm going to run that through my embossing machine. I'll be right back. There's not too much going on at this point, but you can see how pretty that's going to be once we do the sanding. Now, one note, if you are using a single file, if you do the dark cardstock and then you go to the light, you will contaminate that color. That pretty peacock is going to kind of go onto the crumb cake. So if you think of it, try and do all of your light pieces first and then do the dark pieces, or use a different file. So this is going to go right on top, and let's reveal the magic of the white core cardstock. So I'm going to go on the other side. Hopefully I'll remember that I've done that, and look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? And I'm running my file like in the same direction as these words, and you can further distress, once you grab it, you can further distress this piece, but I think that looks pretty darn good. Okay, so this is going to be tab number 1. I'm going to slide that right in here, and do you see that? It fits perfectly. Like, it's not going to go any further in because we have the hinge at the back. So this is just a really nice detail that when you have all of them and you have your closed book, you know that you've got something inside this pocket. I'm going to get busy. I'm going to complete this book, and then I'll come back and show you the complete reveal. Let's take a look at the completed project, and I just want to show you before I dive into the album, this is what I have left. I have a few of the envelope flaps that you could totally use if you want to. I have this little piece here, and that's it. All of the ephemera has been used, and I do have some envelopes, so I can make a few cards, but from this one card kit and a few add-ons, of course, I was able to create this pretty cute mini album. So this is what it looks like, and it's the size of a card base, so it's not too big, and it's a really cute keepsake. So we're going to open this up. I did bring in just a little bit of bling. So I did use the brushed butterflies. They are perfect for this collection. And I did use these ones here. These are strawberry slush. And what's really pretty about them is that yes, they are in the pink tones, but you also have these kind of translucent with gold fleck inside. It's probably really hard for you to see, but I did add a few of them just to add to the decorating of the pages. All of these here are loosely tacked down because I'm going to add my photos. So here we have page number 1. And then this is the inside of that card base. Doesn't that look great? I really tried to use standard size photos. Then you have here, because we glued these together, you have these really cute pull out. Now you could definitely put one on both sides, but I decided just to do the one. So you have this, and then when you turn on this side, I'll get to these in a moment, this is the other flip out, and I think that that looks super cute. So here I decided just to use these tags, and they're in here and they're blank because I thought this would be a really cool place to add some memories or journaling. This is the perfect size to tuck in a few tags, and you know what? I didn't have to make any of these tags. They all came with the kit, so I really thought that was really fun. So then we go in here. Love how this page turned out. You've got some good size photos. Again, these are loosely tacked down. You have another pull out. So I just alternated on the colors, the same colors that are throughout the album. And then we've got this gorgeous layout here. We've got this one, which turns into a pull out. Now you could keep this for additional photos, but I had this piece and I thought it just fit properly, so I kind of kept that there. Again, I used all of these cut pieces. You could make more cards, definitely, but they look so darn cute in here that I thought I would just leave them in the book and add some journaling at the back. You have your last pull out, which is this one. You could make them all in the same colors if you want. I just decided to alternate the colors. And then you have this gorgeous layout and the last page. Can you believe this book is made entirely of card bases? I just love the way it turned out. Well, that's it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video and this project. I hope to see you next time. Have yourself a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.